everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing very well. So in today's video I have a very special project for you guys. This is one that I've been kind of like thinking about for a couple of weeks now, and now it's finally been like produced and like have planned and designed it, and then the final result has just been so special. And it is this gorgeous cottagecore style fairy swing. It is essentially like a little mound of like moss and then a fairy swing attached onto a tree branch with a little mushroom and some like flowers, and it's just very like whimsical and special. This is definitely a crossover of a crochet and DIY project, and it's also quite a fairly quick project, I think, especially considering it is DIY. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Please leave a comment down below if you have any ideas of what you'd like me to make next, because I'm always open to suggestions. And yeah, let's get into the video. Okay, so just starting off with all of the tools that you're going to be needing. I'm starting off with a 4mm hook, and this is going to be for like our main like moss ball mound hill thing that we're going to make. And then for all of the smaller components like the swing, the mushroom, the flowers, the vine leaves and the stones, I'm using a 1.75mm hook. I would normally use a 2mm hook, but I've lost mine, so this is the closest size. You're also going to need some scissors. You might also need a sewing needle just to weave in any ends. I've got a couple of stitch markers here just for like marking the different rounds. And then most important thing you'll need for this project is a hot glue gun. I know it's a bit annoying because you might not have one of these, but I got this from the range. You can get these from pretty much any craft shop. This was about £5 from the range, and then the glue sticks as well were like a pack of like 10 or 15 for £1, so these are pretty affordable to get. You're also going to need some craft wire or like gardening wire. I got this just from a garden centre. You can literally get this anywhere. I've cut one length at about 8 inches and my second length at about 6 inches, so make sure that you are cutting your wire at those measurements. You're also going to need some polyester stuffing, or I'm using yarn scraps to stuff my work because I just have so much of it and I don't really need to use the polyester stuffing. So if you don't have stuffing, you can always use any leftover scraps. So for my two main colours, which is going to be the kind of moss green and then the like brown bowl shape, I'm going to be using this sort of very light lime mint green colour and then this sort of beige light brown colour. Now in my original one that I made, I used dark green and dark brown, but this does not show up on camera very well, so I'm going to be using lighter colours today. Okay, and then for secondary colours, I'm going to be using baby pink for my flowers. I'm going to be using this darker but still light brownish colour for the swing. And then I'm going to be using white for the mushroom like base, and I'm actually going to be using like a lavender purple for the mushroom instead of red, just to kind of switch it up a bit. And just for reference, I'm going to be using the light brown colour in the base bowl, also for the tree branches and for the stones. Okay, so that is everything. Okay, so we're going to be starting off with the tree branch. So I'm taking my longer piece of wire first, and I'm just going to bend it in half, roughly in half like this, and then kind of pinch it together flat so that is like one long stick. So just pinching it. And then I'm just going to be twisting the two ends around each other, and this gives the branch like an actual kind of bobbly effect. I don't really know how to describe it, but it gives it more of that branch texture. So I'm literally just twisting the wire around each other like that all the way to the end, and when you get to the end you kind of want to twist it as tight as you can just to make sure that everything is kind of compact. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing for my smaller branch, and this is going to be the branch that bends off to the side. So again, I'm folding this in half like that, and then I'm twisting it again, twisting the pieces around each other. So you should have something like this. You should have a longer branch, and this is going to be like the tree base, and then the shorter branch, which is the obviously the branch that goes off to the side. Okay, so there's no real easy way to show you this because my hot glue gun has got a very short wire, so I have to like keep it on the floor, like keep it on my lap. There's no way to show you it on my table, so it's a bit difficult. But basically you're just going to want to take your short branch and your branch colour that you want to wrap around the branch, so whatever colour you want for your tree branch, and we're basically going to be hot gluing the yarn to the bottom of the branch, and then we're wrapping it around all the way up really tight, and then when we take it to right to the top, we're going to be hot gluing the top. So we're hot gluing at the bottom and we're hot gluing at the top. So now that my glue gun is nice and hot, we are ready to start gluing. So I'm just going to take the end of my yarn and the end of my branch, and I'm going to just hot glue a tiny bead of glue right on the bottom of the branch. Like that, just a small bead, and I'm just going to place my yarn on top of where I just glued it on, and just pressing it. And once you've got it pressed on, you can kind of push the yarn around the bottom like that. So now that you have the bottom part attached, the yarn attached, we are just going to be twisting really tightly around the branch like this. We're literally twisting the yarn so tightly, making sure that all of that space is covered, we've not got any green parts poking through, and we're just going all the way down the branch, twisting. And then when I get to the other end, I do the exact same thing that I did up here. I'm going to hot glue the end, and then I'm just going to kind of wrap the yarn around it as best as I can. And then once it is all attached, I'm just going to cut the yarn. Okay, so I've just finished the first branch, and then I just basically glued a bit on top and then pressed the yarn on and then cut it once it was dry. So I'm basically going to do the exact same thing now with the bigger one, and I'm going to kind of place my small branch about 2/3 of the way up the longer branch. So about 2/3 of the way is probably about here. So I would be placing, or maybe a bit lower than that actually, maybe about here. So just over halfway. So when you place them together, it's kind of like this letter R shape. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to repeat the steps I just did for this one. I'm going to be attaching my glue, attaching the yarn, wrapping it up until I reach the point where I want to attach the smaller branch. So stopping when I get to my area of where I want to attach the smaller branch, and then I'll be wrapping the yarn around both pieces for a few like turns, and then once that's secure, I'll be wrapping the yarn just around the long branch all the way up to the top, and then fastening off at the top when it's glued. Okay, so I've reached about just over halfway of my longer branch. Now I'm going to attach my shorter branch. So I'm just kind of placing them side by side. I'm going to attach a small amount of glue between each branch, so right in the midpoint between each branch, so that when you press them together that they have a little bit of glue to stick to. Just gonna pop a bit of glue on one branch and then kind of push them together. And then as I'm holding them together, I'm going to just start wrapping a few times around both branches together with the same yarn. So I'm just kind of spinning them round. I'm again doing this very tight. So when you think that your branch is secure, you can kind of just bend it off to the side to make it easier. And now we're just going to continue wrapping around just the longer branch, just around the green section. Okay, so now I've reached the top, I'm gonna attach a bit of glue to the top and then wrap my yarn on top of it so that it's all covered. And then you have your branch all done. So it should look something like this, where I attach the smaller branch here. Obviously the part of the tree is like a lot thicker, so I want to even that out. So I'm going to attach the yarn here and work from the middle to the bottom of the tree, wrapping another layer around. I'm going to do that off camera because hopefully by now you understand how to sort of wrap the yarn around, but I'm now just going to be doing like a second section here to make this thinner part here a lot thicker. Okay, so I'm now going to be working on the top part of the kind of hill. So I'm grabbing my green yarn, and because I've got mine in a yarn cake, it's easier for me to grab both strands. So I'm grabbing the one from the bottom and then the one that's actually wrapping around the skein, because I'm going to be doubling up my yarn. If you've got like a normal ball, then you can just find the tail inside one of the holes and pull that out, and then there should be also another tail that is wrapping around the yarn similarly to this. So you just want to find both of the strands and then double your yarn up. And you're going to take your hook. I'm going to be obviously using my 4mm hook, and I'm going to make a slip knot. And I'm going to be starting off with a chain of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to be making a slip stitch into that 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, this one here. I'm going into that chain and I'm making a slip stitch like that. And then you're just going to want to kind of separate the ring, so you should find this hole in the middle, and this is what we're going to be crocheting into. So I'm going to be making 8 single crochets into this hole. So I'm inserting my hook, and I'm going to make my first single crochet like that. That's 1, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and last one, 8, like that. And then I'm just going to pull tight on the string to tighten the ring, and then I'm going to place my stitch marker into that last single crochet that we made. And that is round 1 all done. So for round 2 I'm going to be making 2 single crochets into each stitch all the way around. So I'm going into my next single crochet, so the first one that we made, and I'm going to make 2 single crochets into this stitch. So that's 1, and that's 2. And as I'm going around, I'm going to keep pulling on the string to close the ring. Into the next stitch, 2 single crochets. Into the next stitch, 2 single crochets. And I'm literally just going to make 2 single crochets into each stitch all the way around. And then replace the stitch marker. So you should now have 16 stitches in the round. For round 3 I'm going to be making 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then 2 single crochets into the second stitch, and I'm repeating that sequence all the way around, so 1 in the next stitch and 2 in the following stitch. So for the next round I'm going to be making 2 single crochets and then 2. Okay, so for the next round I'm going to be making 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches, and then into the third stitch 2 single crochets. So it'll be 1, 1, 2 all the way around. So that's 1, 1, and then 2 into the third. And then again 1, 1, and then 2 into the third. Okay, so I'm going to do that all the way around, and by the end of the round you should have 32 stitches. So for round 5 I'll be doing 3 single crochets and then 2 single crochets into the 4th and repeating that all the way around, and then for round 6 I'll be doing 4 single crochets and then 2 single crochets into the 5th stitch all the way around. So once I have finished round 6 I will have 48 stitches in total. So I'm going to come back after I've finished round 5 and 6 and then I will show you the very last round. Okay, so I've just finished round 6 and now I'm going to move on to round 7. So for round 7, this is the final round. We're going to be slip stitching into each back loop of each stitch. So the back loop is going to be, there are 2 loops per stitch. We have the back loop, which is sort of the one furthest away from you, and the front loop, which is the one closest to you. So we're going to be going into this back loop and making a slip stitch. And I'm doing this quite loose because I don't want it to be too tight, otherwise it's going to start to curl. So it's just 1 slip stitch into each back loop, and I'm doing this with a fairly loose tension. So I'm just slip stitching into each back loop. Okay, so once you have done all of your slip stitches, I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. Like that. So for the brown base, I'm going to be taking my brown yarn and I'm going to be repeating all of these steps, except I'm not going to fasten off when I get to the end of round 7. So I'm just going to be repeating the exact same steps, stopping at round 7, and then I'll be moving on to round 8. Okay, so I've just finished my 7th round with my brown yarn. I did the exact same thing that I just did for the green part, and now we're just going to carry on crocheting so that it creates like a bowl shape. So we're now just going into the normal loops, we're not going into the back loop, and we're just going to do 6 rounds of single crochet, so just 1 in each stitch. So I'm just going into the next stitch, making a single crochet, and I'm making it through both of those loops, into the next stitch, single crochet, into the next stitch, and then just in each stitch all the way around, and then I'm going to repeat that until I have 6 rows of single crochet. So I'm going to come back after I finish my 6th row and then I'm going to fasten off. Okay, so I've just finished the base part and I've fastened off, and then this is going to be the lid that goes on top. So I'm just going to set these aside and we're now going to work on the smaller components, and now I'm just going to be working on the small flowers. So you're going to want to make 4 of these flowers. I'm taking my baby pink yarn and I've got my 1.75mm hook, and I'm going to start off with a magic ring. Now for the magic ring, we're going to be wrapping the short like tail around our 2 fingers like this, so we wrap it around it, and then when we bring it around we cross it over. So we're bringing it around and then we're crossing it over like this, and then we're going to grab this part here with our pinky and just hold it in place. So you should have kind of like a cross shape here. So I'm now going to basically take my hook, I'm going to insert it under the top left loop like that, and I'm going to grab my top right loop and I'm going to pull it through like that, and then we're going to twist the hook up, so we make a twist like this, and then we're going to make a chain 1 with the yarn that is back here. So I'm going to wrap the yarn around and then pull down to make a chain 1. Like that, and then that is the magic ring. So that's probably the most difficult part of the flower, is to make that ring. So once you've done that, it's pretty much a breeze. So for the flower, I'm going to be starting with a chain 2. So I've already done my chain 1 technically, so I'm going to chain another 1. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the second back bump from the hook. So we have the first chain and then the second chain, and I'm going to go into that back bump. So I'm grabbing that back loop behind the chain like that, and I'm going to make a slip stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the ring. So I'm going into the big ring and I'm going to make a slip stitch through there as well to connect the first petal. So that's the first petal done. I'm going to repeat that all the way around until we have 5 petals in total. So I'm going to chain 2, so it's 1 and 2, and then I'm going to pick up the second back bump from the hook, insert my hook, and make a slip stitch, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the ring, like that. I'm going to repeat that again, chain 2, I'm going to slip stitch into that second back bump, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the ring. Okay, and I'm just going to repeat that 2 more times until I have 5 petals. Okay, so once you have your 5 petals, you just want to pull on the short string to draw the hole closed, and then I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. I'll cut the yarn like that. Again, pull on the short tail to close the ring, and then I'm just going to double knot these 2 ends together, or like triple knot if you want it even more secure. And I'm just going to cut the yarn. Okay, so I'm going to be making 4 of these flowers, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how to make the mushroom. Okay, so we're now going to be working on the mushroom. So we're starting on the white base of the mushroom, so I'm taking my white yarn and my 1.75mm hook, and I'm going to make a slip knot. That, and then I'm going to make a chain of 3. Okay, so once you have your chain of 3, you're going to slip stitch into that 3rd chain from the hook, just like we did for the base of our bowl thing. And then we're going to separate the yarn, obviously because we've done a chain 3, it's a little bit harder to separate, but I'm going to be making 6 single crochets into that ring. Okay, so I'm just going to pull tight on the short tail, and I'm going to attach my stitch marker into that 6th single crochet. And that is the end of round 1. So for round 2, I'm going to be making 1 single crochet into the 1st stitch and 2 single crochets into the 2nd stitch. And that is the end of round 2, and you should have 9 stitches in the round. So for round 3 to round 6, so that is 4 rounds in total, you're going to just do 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. So just literally 1 in each stitch, and then when you get to the end of the round, replace the stitch marker, and then you're going to repeat that until you have 6 rounds in total. For round 7, I'm going to be working in the front loops only. So remember when we worked in the back loop, that was the one furthest away from you, but we're now going to be working in the front loop only, which is the one closest to you. And we're going to be making 2 single crochets into each front loop. So I'm going into my next front loop and I'm making 2 single crochets. That's 1 and 2, and then into the next stitch, next front loop, 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, into the next loop, front loop, 2 single crochets, and I'm just repeating this all the way around. So you should have 18 stitches by the end of the round. Okay, so once you have done all of your 2 single crochets in each front loop, I'm just going to fasten off. So I'm just going to chain 1 and cut the yarn. And I'm just going to set this aside, and this is going to be our base. And then I'm going to grab my mushroom top colour, so that's going to be the lilac. I'm going to be making a slip knot and a chain of 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain, like that, and then I'm going to separate the ring, and I'm going to make 6 single crochets into the ring. And then for round 2 and round 3, I'm just going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch. So I'm just going to go into my first single crochet, just going into my first stitch, making a single crochet, and then into each stitch all the way around, just making 1 single crochet. Okay, so for round 4, I'm just going to make 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then 2 single crochets into the second stitch. So I'm just going into my first stitch with a single crochet, and then into the second stitch I'm going to make 2 single crochets. And then into the next stitch 1 single crochet, and then into the next stitch 2 single crochets, and then into the next stitch 1 single crochet, and then into the last stitch 2 single crochets. So you should have 9 stitches by the end of the round. And then for round 5, I'm going to make 2 single crochets into each stitch all the way around. So that is going to make you have 18 stitches in the round. So just 2 single crochets into each stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to chain 1 and fasten off, and I'm going to leave a long tail because we're going to be crocheting our 2 pieces together. So I'm going to just cut a piece of white yarn, and I'm just going to make a knot on one end. And then with my sewing needle, I'm just going to basically sew some spots all over the top of the mushroom. So I'm just going from the back of the work up into any space and just pulling through. And then I'm going to go into a stitch next to it and pull through to create a little spot. And I'm just going to do that all the way around, just spreading out the spots into different areas. So just going from front to back, and I'm just kind of doing this randomly, not like with any plan. I think it looks better when they're just kind of scattered. Okay, so I'm now going to be attaching the top and the bottom. So you want to make sure that you are lining up both edges together, and we're going to be using the string to basically attach them together. So we basically just want to line them up. It doesn't need to be exact, like you just line 2 stitches up together, and you're going to grab the top loop of the white base and the bottom loop of the purple part. So you're basically grabbing the innermost stitches, and then you're just going to pull through with the purple yarn and then chain 1 to attach it. And then we're going to make a single crochet into the exact same space, like that, and we're just going to basically be single crocheting into each of the innermost loops. I'm grabbing the back loop of the white yarn and the front loop of the purple yarn, and I'm making a single crochet, and I'm repeating that all the way around, grabbing the back loop of the white yarn and the front loop of the purple yarn and single crochet, and I'm just going to do that all the way around until they're all connected. So when you get to the part with the white tail, you're just going to want to tuck the tail in, and we're going to ignore that chain 1 that we did, and I'm just going straight into the actual top loop of the stitch, and then the top loop of the bottom loop, sorry, of the purple stitch, and carrying on with my single crochet. And we're just going to tuck in the white tail onto the inside, and if you're struggling, then you can kind of just pull the tail through with the hook to kind of get it to stay in. Okay, and then when you've done your final single crochet, you're just going to slip stitch back into that first purple single crochet that we made, like that, and then I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. And then with my hook, I'm just going to tuck the purple yarn in to the work. Okay, so that is the mushroom all done, and then we're going to be moving on to the swing. Okay, so for the swing, you're going to want to grab your kind of medium tone brown, and you're just going to basically make 2 chains. So we're going to start off with a slip knot, and we're just going to chain 25. Once you have your 25 chains, you're just going to cut the yarn and pull it through, and then you're just going to make a second chain, doing the exact same thing, making a slip knot and then just making 25 chains and then fastening off. And I'm just going to set aside the 2 like the swing rope sections, and I'm just going to set them aside. And now we're going to be working on the swing seat. So we're going to be making 1 swing seat, and then we're going to be fastening that one off, and then when we make the second one, we are not going to fasten off. So I'm going to always want to start with the one with where you're fastening off. So I'm just making a slip knot, and I'm going to make a chain of 10. Okay, and then I'm going to go into the second chain from the hook, and I'm going to make a single crochet, and then I'm going to make a single crochet into each chain all the way across. Okay, so you should have 9 single crochets in your row, and then for the next row we are just going to be turning the work, and we're just going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch. So I'm not going to be chaining 1, and I'm just going to attach the little tail in so that I can weave it in. And I'm just going to make my first single crochet in that same stitch, and then into each stitch all the way across. So that is row 2 all done, and then I'm just going to repeat the exact same thing for row 3 and row 4. I'm just going to be turning the work and making 1 single crochet into each stitch, and then turning the work again and then making 1 single crochet into each stitch all over again. And then I am going to be chaining 1 and fastening off, and then I will meet you back and I'll show you how we attach the swing ropes to the first swing seat. Okay, so once you have finished your first swing seat, you're going to be looping both of the swing ropes into the swing seat. So I'm going to be weaving in this end first, just to get it out of the way. Okay, and then once you have weaved in the end, we're going to be looping in these swing ropes. So I'm just taking one end of the swing rope and I'm going to push my hook from the back to the front. And then I'm going to grab one part of the rope and pull it through. And then I'm going to take the other part of the rope, push my hook through the other side, sort of like a few rows up from it, like this, and I'm going to bring the other part of the rope down. And then you can kind of just pull up the rope so that it's sitting like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie like a very, very thick knot onto each rope. So you just keep tying knots over and over again until you get this kind of big bulk of a knot. Okay, and then when you pull them up, then the knots will not like come through and it won't come loose. So now I'm just going to cut the ends like that. And then I'm going to repeat the exact same thing with the other rope on this side, and then you should have 2 loops going through it. Okay, so this is what it should be looking like once you have attached both ropes to the first swing seat. And now I'm going to make a second swing seat using the exact same pattern, 4 rows of single crochet, starting with a chain of 10, and then I will come back once I've done that, because I'm not going to fasten off the second seat, so make sure that when you're doing the second seat you don't fasten it off, and I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay, so now I have done my 4 rows of single crochet, and I'm going to be attaching this swing to against sort of this swing, so we're going to be kind of holding them together. So I'm going to place my second swing that I've made against the first one, so we're holding them together like this, and then we're going to crochet around the border. We're going to be ignoring these ropes for the time being. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook into the same stitch that I just did that last single crochet into, and then I'm going to insert my hook into the corner of the first swing that we made and make a single crochet through both stitches like that, and then I'm just going to make a single crochet sort of into the middle of the swing and the middle of the other swing, single crochet, and then I'm going into the next corner and then the next corner of the back swing, and then single crochet, and then I'm going to just single crochet across, up the side, and then back across the top. So I will meet you back once I've reached the beginning again. Okay, so I've just reached that corner again, so I'm going to now just slip stitch into the first stitch like that, and then chain 1 and fasten off, and then I'm just going to weave in this end to the inside of the work. And that is the swing all finished. Okay, so we're now going to be working on the ivy. So I've got a single strand of the light green yarn and my 1.75mm hook, and for the ivy I'm going to start off by making a slip knot and a chain of 41. Okay, so once you have your chain, we are going to start off by making 3 slip stitches, and we're going to be working these into the back bumps. So you're going to flip the chain over and you're going to insert the hook into that second back bump and make a slip stitch, and then insert the hook into the next back bump and make a slip stitch, and then insert the hook into the next back bump and make a slip stitch. So that's 3 slip stitches. And then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch into that back bump of that chain, and then chain 1 again, and slip stitch into that back bump, and then chain 1 again and make a slip stitch into that back bump. Okay, so you should have something like this, and then we're going to slip stitch into that third chain where we did the third slip stitch initially. So we're going back into that original slip stitch like that, and then we're going to be repeating that process again. So 3 slip stitches, 1 in each back bump. So there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3, and then I'm going to chain 1, slip stitch into the back loop of that chain, chain 1 again, slip stitch into that back loop of that chain, chain 1 again, and slip stitch into the back loop of that chain, and then I'm going to slip stitch back into that initial back bump of the row like that. So this is what it should look like so far. I kind of have these little bumps, and I'm repeating that process all the way across. So 3 slip stitches, 1 into the next 3 back bumps, and then I'm going to chain 1, slip stitch into the back bump of that chain, and then chain 1 again, slip stitch into the back bump, chain 1 again, slip stitch into the back bump, and then I will slip stitch into that same chain on the actual row, and then I will just repeat that all the way across. So I will meet you back when that is all done. Okay, so I've just reached the end of the row, and now I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. And then I'm just going to tie the 2 ends together in as many knots as I can make, just to make sure that it's secure. Okay, so this is what the ivy is looking like, and now I'm just going to show you how to make the pebble stone like pathway. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you how to make the stones now. So I'm going to start off with the large stones, and I'm using my light brown yarn, and I'm going to use a single strand of this, starting with a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 5. Okay, and then I'm going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook, and then 1 single crochet into the next 3 chains. And then I'm going to turn the work, and I'm going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way across, and I'm going to weave this end in as I go. So that's just 4 single crochets. And then for row 3, and this is the final row, I'm just going to turn the work, and I'm going to make a single crochet into the first stitch, a half double crochet into the next 2 stitches, that's 1 and 2, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the last stitch like that, and then I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off, and I'm going to cut that tail over here, and then I'm just going to weave this end into the back. Okay, so that is what the large stone is looking like, and you're going to want to make 3 of these, and I'm going to show you how to make the small stone, and we're just going to start off with a slip knot and a chain of 3. And then I'm going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook, and then a single crochet into the last chain, and then I'm going to turn the work, and I'm just going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch, so it's literally just 2 single crochets in total. Okay, and then I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. I'm going to cut the other tail, and then I'm just going to weave this end in. Okay, and you're going to want to make 2 small stones. Okay, so since it's going to be a little bit tricky to show you how I'm going to hot glue everything, I'm going to kind of show you it step by step. So you want to just basically make sure that you're hot gluing everything to only the green base. We're making sure that everything is on top of the green base before we stuff the bottom bowl and then attach the top to the bottom. So everything needs to be arranged and stuck on before we do that, because after we have crocheted the bases together, we can't like fix anything else. So you're going to want to take your tree and you're just going to poke it into any stitch where you want it, but I quite liked about here, so I'm just pushing the bottom through like this, and you want to make sure that a tiny bit is coming out through the other side, and then I'm going to kind of bend the bottom part of it into like an L shape like that. And then when it's in that L shape, we're basically going to be gluing this edge to the back like this. So you're going to push it against the green base to hold it like that, and then you can kind of move this around, but it won't be going anywhere. So I'm going to hot glue that together. After I've hot glued the tree stump, I'm then going to hot glue the mushroom sort of to the edge. So I'm literally just going to apply a little bit at the base and then just stick it on top like that, nice and easy. Then after that, I'm going to be hot gluing the ivy. So I'm going to be wrapping the ivy from the top all the way around the tree, all the way down to the bottom. And I just find it easier to hot glue each leaf. So rather than and just going basically leaf by leaf. So not kind of doing one long strip because it's going to dry too quickly. You just want to do like one blob at the top and glue the top, then wrap it, glue the second leaf, then wrap it around again, glue the third leaf, etc. and just keep going all the way down to the bottom. Once that ivy has been glued, you're then just going to stick your flowers on top of the ivy, and then you will be placing your stones on. So you're just going to kind of want to arrange them however you want them, but I personally like when they're kind of sitting at the front so that it looks like there is some cobble path going up towards the swing. So as you can see here, if I like place it like this, like that, and then when the swing goes on, just hook it on like that, you can see that it kind of looks like it's leading up to it. So I'm not going to be gluing the swing at all. You can if you want to, but I just don't think it's really necessary. It will hold perfectly fine. So I'm just going to kind of hold everything down so you can kind of see the arrangement. So obviously the ivy will be wrapped around, the mushroom will be stuck down, and then the flowers will be stuck to the ivy. So when you have glued everything, it will look something like this. So you'll have the ivy wrapped around, you'll have the flowers stuck on, the pebbles or stones stuck on, and the mushroom. And then this is what it looks like when we've kind of stuffed everything and joined it all together. But you want to make sure that everything is stuck to the green base before you do any touching or sewing or whatever. So yeah, I'm going to do that now, and then I'm going to come back and show you how we attach the bases together. Okay, so I've just finished gluing everything on. This is what it's looking like, and then I just stuffed my base with some scrap yarn. This probably isn't enough, I'm probably going to have to use more, but I just thought I'd stuff a little bit for now, and then as I am attaching the top to the bottom, I'll keep stuffing as I go. But you're basically just going to want to place the lid on top, and we're basically just going to be crocheting around this edge. We're technically going to be grabbing the front loop of the green section and the back loop of the brown section. I'm going to be taking my green yarn, I'm going to make a slip knot. And you can just start anywhere on the base, there's no rules. So I'm just going to pick up the work, and I'm going to just insert my hook into the back loop of any brown stitch like that, and then the front loop of any green stitch like that. So I'm just grabbing both, and although it's a little bit bulky on top, I'm just going to try and ignore everything on top because otherwise it gets a little bit difficult. So I'm just going to pull my slip knot through, and then chain one to attach it. And then I'm going to make a single crochet into the exact same stitch. So I'm grabbing the same back loop and front loop and making a single crochet. Okay, and then I'm just going to make a single crochet through both stitches into the next stitch. So I'm grabbing the back loop of the brown section and then the front loop of the green section, and I'm just going to make a single crochet, and then again into the next stitch, grabbing the back loop of the brown section and the front loop of the green section and single crochet. And I'm just going to be doing that all the way around. When you get to the part where the ends are, I'm just literally going to tuck them under, or you could crochet them in. And I'm going to ignore the chain one, and I'm just going to go into the next front loop of the brown section, or the next back loop of the brown section, and the next front loop of the green section, ignoring that chain one. And I'm just going to crochet the tails in, making a single crochet. And then as you can see here, we've reached that final stitch of the brown section. So I'm just going to go into that back loop and then into the front loop of the next green section and single crochet through both. So that's kind of what you do when you reach that awkward bit. And then as you can see, we have the next back loop here and the next front loop here, and then just single crochet through both. So I'm just continuing this now all the way around, and then I will meet you back once I've got to the other side. Okay, so I've just finished my last single crochet, and now I'm just going to join both sides together by doing a slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made. So just slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain one and fasten off. And then I'm just going to tuck the end in onto the inside of this kind of ball shape. So I'm just kind of grabbing the green yarn, and then I'm just going to pull it through with my hook into the inside of the mound that we've made. And just kind of move it around to shape it. Okay, so that is what it's looking like, and then obviously you just want to put the swing on. And again, you can hot glue the swing onto it if you want to, but I just didn't really want to. I think it looks absolutely fine not glued on. That's what it's looking like. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up, and any suggestions leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.